Former trainee astronaut Wally Funk, who is always left out of the list of oldest men in space for one good reason. She is a woman, Mary Wallace Funk. Funk being a synonym for body odour and a genre of music is not unconnected. The genre of music gets its name as it's said to overstimulate the senses. 62 years after first training as an airline pilot, Wally Funk became by some margin the oldest person in space, before being usurped by William Shatner. In the pandemic's most extreme example, isolated the elderly to protect them from COVID. Before we go back to the audience though, one quick question. There is a famous John Glenn whose surname is spelled with a single N, meaning both his names are four-letter words. And what did he achieve on a record 5 occasions in 1981, 1983, 1985, 1987 and 1989?
He directed filmmakers.
This is an incredible audience already. That is correct. He directed 5 films called For Your Eyes Only, Octopussy, A View to a Kill, The Living Daylights and License to Kill. The man who's directed more James Bond films than anyone else in history is not even the most famous John Glenn. We now go to the audience for some more questions.
I'll give you a 2-for-1 special. What is the only 4-letter country that has a 4-letter capital?
Oh, that's Togo.
And the capital?
Well, obviously, if I know there's Togo, I know what the capital is going to be. The capital is Lome. Togo and Lome. Thank you. Oh, yeah, there's another one as well. There's Peru and Lima as well. And suddenly my smugness has disappeared.
What was the name of the daughter of Laura Ingalls Wilder, known from Little House on the Prairie? And her first name and her last name were 4-letter words.
Well, I must admit, we're getting a better class of audience now that quote unquote is finished. They've moved over to us. I don't know.
It was Rose Wilder Lane.
Rose Wilder Lane. Thank you very much for that. We now move on to more questions about 4-letter words, and this time it's entertainment. Which 2013 UK #1 hit begins with these lyrics? I used to bite my tongue and hold my breath, scared to rock the boat and make a mess. So, Raw is correct. Raw by Katy Perry. I was going to say that if you don't know the answer is also the same to the following question. The cheetah is unique among big cats in his inability to do what? Exactly. As you proved there, all of us gathered here can roar louder than a cheetah. Even though it could outrun us over any distance you care to choose. Although if you are in a position to choose, I question your life decisions. There is an additional fact about cheetahs, and it is a 4-letter answer. There's one country outside Africa where cheetahs live in the wild. And would you just know it does have a 4-letter name. That country is? Iran is correct. So why did I pick that particular song other than it's a 4-letter word? It's only partly because of Katy Perry, a talented singer whose greatest achievement so far is to escape a marriage with Russell Brand before it reached the Christmas dinner with David Icke stage. And whose second greatest achievement is to escape the Smurfs film franchise before it reached the Christmas dinner with David Icke stage. Now my fascination with Raw lies with the co-writer of the song. The most influential pop culture figure whose face you wouldn't recognise, even if he came up to you and said, "Hello, my name is Max Martin." The Swedish producer Max Martin has either written or co-written no fewer than 25 Billboard #1 singles since 1998. He sits in that list only behind legendary songwriters Paul McCartney and John Lennon. If you don't believe that John Lennon and Paul McCartney are legendary, please bear in mind I'm saying this as a fan of Liverpool FC. The artists he's written #1s for are a veritable who's who of 21st century pop history. Not just Katy Perry, but Britney Spears, NSYNC, Pink, Kelly Clarkson, Taylor Swift, The Weeknd, Justin Timberlake, Ariana Grande, BTS, and for heterosexual men, Maroon 5 and Coldplay. He has done more to soundtrack the lives of those growing up in the 21st century than any other songwriter in history. And yet, still, people's first thoughts when they think about Swedish pop music is which 4-letter word? it's not ABBA. But what sort of world are we living in where in 2022, 4 Zimmer Frame Welding divorcees get nominated for a Grammy Award for Record of the Year? How silly they looked alongside fellow nominees: Doja Cat, Billie Eilish, Lil Nas X, Olivia Rodrigo, and Tony Bennett, who is going to be 96 years old this year. Who said pop music was a young man's game? Despite ABBA's global success and 2022 Grammy nomination, they've actually had limited success in the United States of America, with just the one chart topper, their most enduring hit, Dancing Queen. And in an ironic twist, perhaps the most Swedish thing you'll ever hear, the heroine of this song, a 17-year-old girl enjoying a Friday night out of town, looking to dance, jive, and have the time of her life, may have been, in real life, arrested. Why? It's not because she's underage. You don't know where she's dancing. She could have been arrested because, unbelievably, in Sweden, the laws have been reviewed again and again. It's still illegal for any human being to dance in public unless the venue has a special dancing. In 1984, the film Footloose came out, which Kevin Bacon, that guy who was in an advert with the guy who wanted to gig at the Comedy Store with, taught a conservative town to dance. Nearly 40 years on, Sweden is still living in the Footloose cinematic universe. And I must admit that when I read that if you get up and dance in a bar in Sweden, the police can arrest you, I immediately Googled the words, immigrate to Sweden. Do we have any final 4-letter questions?
Which animal with 4 letters gives its name to a piece of music by Johann Sebastian Bach, which can be played the same forwards as well as backwards?
What a question! Thank you for your strong advice there, but that was literally what I was about to do. I don't know idea. I'm gonna. Is it cat?
That's 3 letters. And it's not cat.
Dog? Lion? Duck?
It's
Swan?
about as wet.
Swan?
No?
Go on and tell me.
The crab can.
The crab cannibal. There you go. What an answer that is. Thank you very much.
Slightly different vibe, but what name did Kylie Jenner just take away from her son that she's just had born because she wanted to rename it? So she named him something and then changed it. It's an animal.
This would depend on whether I'm wolf.
Yeah!
Now I'm going to have this 4-letter word thing. Thanks for your advice, word. This time I actually went for a 4-letter word. It's amazing how much more success you get with that tactic. We now come to our last 4-letter word of the episode. And the answer to all these questions is the same. The name of which creature comes from the Middle English word meaning perch? Although it's not an insect, this word has an association with a flea. This is also the surname of the only ever openly gay member of a major American boy band. We got there in the end. It is also the name of the body of water that separates Australia and the island of Tasmania. It is also the surname of a man who in 1777, at the age of 60, founded a British company and within a century had become the biggest of its kind in the world. And finally, it's the last word in the title of an anthem of body positivity by Meghan Trainor. The answer to all of these is bass. Taking them in order, the fish bass, best ever featured as a main course on the menu of every restaurant you've ever taken your mum and dad to, derives from the Middle English for perch. The association with the flea is what? Flea is the bass guitarist of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. The only openly gay member of the American boy band is NSYNC's Lance Bass, and it's the Bass Strait that separates Australia and Tasmania. Therefore, Bass is now not only one of the most famous gays in the world, but one of the most famous straights. Bass Brewery was founded by the 60-year-old William Bass, and within 100 years became the largest brewery in the world. And as we probably know, its red triangle logo was famously seen in which 1882 painting? What an answer that is, sir. Well done. Edward Manet's Bar at the Folies Bergère. It was the first ever registered trademark on January the 1st, 1876, after an employee of the company queued overnight on New Year's Eve in order to be the first in line the next morning. It was that or Hootenanny. And then there was, of course, the Meghan Trainor #1 hit, All About That Bass. One four-letter word, so many possible quiz questions. And yet none of these is my favourite bass fact. This is my favourite bass fact. There was a Democratic senator for Oklahoma from 2005 to 2019 called Randy Bass. And despite his great name and his political career, is still best known for his sporting achievement in 1985. Does anyone know what his sporting achievement in 1985 was? It's funny you mentioned the Chicago Bears, because it is an American sport. He hit 54 home runs in a single baseball season as he led the Hanshin Tigers to their Japan Series victory. Another fact, the most famous jinx in Japanese sport was because the Japanese mistook a pioneer of fried chicken restaurants for Randy Bass, especially with his name Randy Bass. The English language translation. See. Prestigious sporting competition the world has today is undoubtedly the Carabao Cup. Thank you for listening. Presented and written by me, Paul Simon, with additional material by Oliver Levy, additional costume for Paul. The producer was Ed Morris. It was a Ned Roger production for BBC Radio.
Six-legged comedy is on sitcom and desperate to succeed in a world he does not fully understand. Phil Ellis is trying.
Rethink. I'm Professor Ben Anson, and I'll be taking a fresh look at the issues of our time with a panel of experts.
I think it would be helpful if people on all sides could accept that some problems don't produce a solution.
What changes should we make? What should we rethink?
That is the kind of thing that we should have public deliberation around.
Very inconsistent set of rules.
I'll scrutinise the latest research and take a look at what this might mean for policy and society.
But it is also a heated debate, and that's because it's an important topic. It's about who we are.
Rethink on Radio 4 and BBC Sounds tomorrow afternoon at 4.
BBC News at 7 o'clock. Lebanon's health ministry says exploding walkie-talkies have killed at least 14 people and injured more than 450 in new weapon attacks across the country. Some of the blasts took place at the funerals of victims of yesterday's synchronized pager blast, which appeared to target members of the armed group Hezbollah. 12 people are known to have died, including 2 children. Lebanon blames Israel, which has not commented. Our correspondent Hugo Bashega gave this update from the Lebanese capital, Beirut.
Today, another wave of explosions, another humiliation for Hezbollah, because it does suggest that Israel has managed to infiltrate the communications network that has been used by Hezbollah. The group has vowed to respond to what happened yesterday, and tomorrow we're going to hear from Hassan Nasrallah, the powerful Hezbollah leader, who's going to be addressing his supporters, and I think we're going to see an indication of what he could be planning to do.
Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has said the country is opening a new phase of the war in Gaza, with its attention shifting to the north. Analysts believe his comments suggest that Israel's focus is moving towards Hezbollah and the conflict in the border with Lebanon. The train drivers' union, ASLEF, says its members have voted to accept the government's latest pay deal. It brings to an end a 2-year dispute at 16 train companies across England, Scotland and Wales. ASLEF says the increase is equivalent to a 15% rise over the next 3 years. The chief executive of the post office has announced he will leave the role in March next year. Nick Reed had said in July he was stepping back from his duties to prepare for the next phase of the Horizon inquiry into the wrongful prosecution of hundreds of postmasters because of faulty software. Astrologists in the Netherlands say radio waves from Elon Musk's world network of satellites are hindering their research by blinding their telescopes. The upgraded Starlink satellites provide faster internet around the world. SpaceX, which also BBC News.
The screenwriter Jeremy Brock joins tonight's front row to discuss Amazon's very royal scandal, the second dramatisation this year, and in the Matrix's 2019 News Night interview with Prince Andrew. And there's music from the Glasgow Cathedral Festival. Front row is at 7:15. Before that, Ian makes a surprising decision, and Fallon doesn't know where to turn when we head to Ambridge in a moment.
On BBC iPlayer.
I'm on a train, Mr. Glasgow to London night sleeper service.
Brand new drama.
I think we may have a problem.
There's been a hack check-in. Hijacks a sort 20th century.
We're being controlled remotely. This train is now a guided missile.
One of the passengers may be working with the hackers.
Don't trust anyone. You'll never get off, Harry.
Night Sleeper. Watch all episodes on BBC iPlayer.
It's the Archers, and Jolene is admiring her pie.
I'm heading off shortly. I'll be back in Canton 10 I'd say.
And at the same time, incredibly cheesy.
Perfect for the Bulls prize-winning apple and cheese pie then.
Well, unless it's it.
Whose pie comes out on top?
No, I don't. Either way, it's a big splash for the socials.
That's right. Although what?
Oh, do you know this bit that you were asking Wayne for baking tips?
Huh? He said he didn't want to take sides. I explained there was zero competitiveness involved, but
Same to me.
he wants to go on.
Obviously, he is a chef.
Ruth dropped by with another box of apples.
Right, I did the practice with before Saturday.
Okay. So, you went out Jill for any point there.
What's going on? Oh, I tried, but I'm out of off.
I ain't sure we should be involved in other people. I'm not going to keep it because it's oh, we're doing this. We just need to focus on perfecting our winning part.
Your offer, and loving it though it smells like.
It's not that family produced one. What? Of course it is. What's wrong? No, what's that?
Ale, which might also suggest it's rubbish. Don't look, you've too much juice from the
I
apples.
have no problem. Anyway, it's a cheese crust, so we don't want it burning.
Cheese crust. The more responsible which is inside the pie on top of it.
That's the obvious one. Yeah, but I'm creating something more original, aren't I? Actually, I had a taste years earlier.
Oh, did you? I'm rather proud of it.
Maybe try slicing your apples somewhere.
They were exactly as per instructions.
Baking's got instinct. And you don't overwork your dough.
I'd say leathery. There's nothing wrong with my crust.
You got strong teeth now.
Hey, look,
Come on. different hobbies. We've got more chance of having the judges on it.
Yeah, yes.
As long as they don't break their teeth on the Tuesday. Now, no touching my pie when I'm on the phone, alright? It needs time to cool.
And you won't start asking Fallon for those, will you?
Oh, don't worry, I won't. I'm just worried how she's coping at the tea room. Today. See you in a while.
That's my sort of appeal, she gets it. She's
I'll clear that table next, sir, if you want to grab it.
Thanks, Fallon. You've seen the length of that queue?
Yeah, you should have seen it earlier. Nearly reached the car park.
Dropped by to make sure he was alright. This is ridiculous. You can't do anything with no help.
Nope. So we'll just have to wait. Natasha was here earlier, and then she had to take over at the shop. Tom's harvesting veg, Pat's in the dairy, and some fire.
Got you in Chelsea?
She's busy this week, and as you know, Edna wrecked yesterday. So.
Right. Got a spare apron inside. I'll give you a hand.
Oh, do you have to do that?
Oh, I do. You're going to start losing customers.
My customers. Is it your usual, Mr. Cartwright? But I'll bring it out as soon as I can, but I'm afraid it might be a while.
Should we leave the dishwasher till later, Captain?
We're fine for now, really. Whatever you think.
Oh, your little kid is adorable. Even says some jumps he's getting as a look.
Oh, yeah. Really, she's dead.
I'm pretty sure Jolene doesn't think that. Listen, do you mind me asking you something? It's a bit delicate.
Indeed, delicate.
It's about Loretta. Chance she could do some shifts back here. We had an ask, but she's had to leave the tea room. They could do with the money.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Chelsea. No, wouldn't feel right.
Yeah, anyway, sorry to ask.
Jolene says she'll be around 4.
Hey, Ian.
Hey, boss. Well, the neighbours will see you this afternoon.
Needed to thank Tracy for Xander's good luck pencil case.
No worries. Did he like it?
He takes it every day, so thank you.
Oh, I can't believe it started school.
Oh, it's terrifying. What can I get you? Oh, diet lemonade, thanks. Thanks.
And is he enjoying it in reception?
No clue.
What do you mean?
Well, how are you supposed to know?
Try asking him.
It's pointless. He tells me all about the sample toy he likes best or what colour his painting was. Loads of little details.
Okay.
But whether he's having a ball or hitting every moment of it, who knows? Okay, cheers.
But he ain't refusing to go in.
Oh, that's ready for you, Ian. Oh, ta. Anyway, I've joined the PTA so I can help with the fundraising for school.
You're brave. I never went near the PTA. Too many busybodies wanting to moan about my kids.
Yeah, it's the first meeting tomorrow. Helen's going too, so she'll tell me what's what. By the way, what's this about Jazzer's giant sunflower?
Sunflower?
Yeah, Chelsea was saying yesterday when she gave Xander a trim.
I ain't seen it myself, but he reckons it's a dead cert to win in the flower and produce on Sunday.
Well, as is Dr. Malik's accidentally perfect garlic, according to Johnny.
Jess might have some competition, you know.
What do you mean?
Well, Dave popped in for a birthday pint and said pick from the most enormous sunflower behind their orchard.
Really?
Yeah, Rosie's going to enter it on Sunday. She's getting all excited about winning the prize.
Oh, wow. Good for her.
Xander started a garden and a seed tray, but it's not finished.
Kenton, I just need to ring Jazzer to pick up milk on his way home. Is that okay?
Yeah, good for you.
Won't be a second. Sorry.
No problems.
While you're here, you got any baking tips for an apple and cheese pie?
The obvious one was to bake up the bottom.
Oh, great. Oh, so what size apple slices work best? And tips on how not to overwork the dough.
Oh, my worse. I was exhausted.
Thanks so much for helping me out, Mum. Couldn't have got through that queue, let them include any of the tables.
No, we ought to laugh. But you can't run this place on your own. It's too much.
Yeah. They're having an emergency meeting tomorrow about all the staff and Harry's going to.
Yeah, I heard about her sister. But This keeps falling. If those queues keep building up, we'll lose business.
That's right.
All the effort you've gone to putting this place on the Really?
I'm tired of it, Mum. Tired of what? Of the people, the plays, all the drama. Honestly, I don't know anything.
Okay.
Why really? If their business goes belly up, I just don't care.
It's sad to hear that.
That's how it is. I'm not going to waste my energy worrying.
You still working on your pitch for the charging station cafe?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I'm trying out loads of menu ideas. And I've written up my research on customer preference, average spend, all that.
Excellent.
Yeah, I've lined up local suppliers who'll sign up the minute I get the green light.
Okay. Did you ask them to be discreet?
You went more in Bridge Farm will find out. Thank goodness. What are they going to do, sack me? That would definitely be the end of the tea room.
I'm so sorry it's turned out like this for you.
I'm fine about it, honestly.
How's the nursing getting?
Yeah, he's fine as well.
No more mention of quitting the force?
Watkins is a fantastic partner. Yeah, that thing with George.
It were a blip, weren't it? Anyhow, he stopped himself from doing anything too bad, which proves he's solid.
Let's hope so. But if he wants to stay part-time, there's no point in me pitching for this new place.
It'll all be fine, my darling. You hang in there, eh?
Yeah, thanks, Mum.
Oh, you're a lifesaver, Tracy. Is he alright in there?
He's spark out.
I couldn't bear to wait just to drag him into the shop, so thank you. And once we're home, he'll just want to curl up in front of the telly anyway.
I'm in no rush, believe me. He must be shattered though, poor little guy.
This is the first time he's actually fallen asleep in the car on the way home. Well, anyway, I managed to call his teacher at last.
Oh, well done. So, how's he doing?
I still don't know.
What?
No, I mean, she was lovely, saying how much Xander loves the sandpit and all the water play.
And has he made a few little friends?
Well, no, she said he was a popular member of the class and very keen to join it.
There you go.
Except, I heard her say exactly the same thing to the parent they had word for word.
Oh, okay. Well, can't they all be keen and popular? You should be grateful, Lee. The only time I talk to teachers is when they collared me to read all about how Chelsea was going to the way to handling the business.
Oh dear.
Brad will grade it to them. I don't know what thinkings I've got.
Brilliant, Trace. Well, I also had to run around the playground chasing Xander's party now.
You're really going for it, aren't you? Joining the PTA, having a birthday party with the whole class right at the start of term. That's very impressive.
Very stupid, you mean?
I never said that. Oh, and did I mention that Jazzer's fuming?
Is that why you're in no rush to go home?
And that prize winning sunflower he keeps making about. Turns out it's the same one Pip found at the back of Brookfield.
No. Well, he's lost out now because Kenton said Rosie was damn excited about it.
I know, you'll just have to lump it. I'll need ear defenders tonight when he gets over his disappointment. He were that desperate to win.
I do love how competitive the flower project should make the village. I reckon Kenton should be alright with the 5. He was angry for tips, so I gave him exactly the same ones I gave Jordan when she rang me yesterday.
Honestly, they're a right pair. If it's not this blooming pie they're fighting over, it's who their new kid loves most.
I can imagine. Right, I'd better get Xander home. We come up with fundraising ideas for the meeting tomorrow.
Now, Ian, listen to me carefully. Do not get lumbered with the worst jobs, and definitely say no to the Teddy Tombola.
Don't worry, Helen's already briefed me. I'm only volunteering for whichever event is the nicest people, and she'll nudge me round. As long as everyone pitches in, it'll end up nice and fair.
Don't believe it.
I promise that Adam will sit in my hands for the rest of the meeting, however silent the meeting goes.
Good advice, because I reckon you're busy enough already.
Yeah, as Adam keeps reminding me.
Right, time to face the Scottish music.
Thanks again for looking after Xander while I went into the shop, Tracy.
No worries. I still think your mom was right to join in the first place.
It'll be fine, but thank you.
Susan attempts to hold everyone together, and there's trouble for Tony in Yonkers tomorrow night at 7.
Dear BBC, when oh when will you stop providing a platform to puppets?
There's someone or something new coming to Saturday nights.
I'm Randy Feltbase.
entirely of felt, and he wants to destroy the world.
The point is, the planet is getting hot. We're on track for mass extinction, and I want to see it happen.
Randy Feltface's Destruction Manual
Begins this Saturday night at 11 on Radio 4 and BBC Sounds.
Disney is remaking its 1937 classic Snow White as a live-action film, but this time there's no mention of 7 dwarfs in the title. It's prompted a strong reaction, some questioning whether the story should be retold at all, pulling it backward. Others argue it's just a fairy tale. We get into the debate on Antisocial at 8 o'clock. Now time for Front Row with Kirsty Warren.
Tonight, more Murder in the Hebrides. Best-selling writer of the Lewis trilogy takes us into dark waters for his new thriller. And back to Weimar with Kurt Weill. Sexuality, seduction and gender norms explored in the opening performance of the Glasgow Cathedral Festival.
Meine Herren, mit
Chihuahua also stars as we interview another of the finalists in the running for the BBC National Short Story Award. It's the Newsnight interview that became a sensation in its own right, and my colleague Emily Maitlis sat down in Buckingham Palace with Prince Andrew back in 2019. The Duke of York responded to allegations of sexual misconduct and addressed his friendship with the financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. It created a media storm and inspired not one but 2 big-budget dramas. Back in the spring, Scoop, based on journalist Sam McAllister's account of securing the interview with the royal household, which starred Billy Piper, Gillian Anderson and Rufus Sewell, streamed on Netflix. And now, a second adaptation lands on Amazon tomorrow, charting the background to the day, the interview itself, and the aftermath, and stars Michael Sheen as the Duke of York and Ruth Wilson as Emily Maitlis. Also in the picture, Sir Edward Young, former private secretary to the late Queen, played by Alex Jennings, and Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, played by Honor Swinton Byrne and Sophia Oxen. Earlier, I spoke to the writer of A Very Royal Scandal, Jeremy Brock. Before we hear from him, let's hear a clip where the Newsnight team watched back an edit of the interview.
Okay, so I've put the pick up between 2 questions about the nightclub. Also, Emily used her hair behind her ear between takes. Pick up, main interview. No one was supposed to do it at the time, so.
Shit, I'm so sorry, Jake. I didn't even realise I was doing that.
Will anyone notice?
Probably not. No, it took me a while to see it. And to be fair, she could have moved her hair between shots.
Okay, let's have a look. Do you remember her?
No. I have no recollection of ever meeting her.
Jeremy, let's take as a starting point Newsnight's amazing, unprecedented interview. When did you first watch it?
I think I watched it go out live, like most people, through my fingers.
When was it as a screenplay request first on your radar?
So, about a year and a half ago, which is relative to most drama developments, quite quick. It was with Blueprint, they'd been in talks with Emily, they invited me in for a meeting, and I did the audition.
I take it was a no-brainer. You knew what you wanted to do with it.
100% no-brainer, partly because structurally it's a rare beast as a public domain story in that it fits so perfectly in 3 acts. The pursuit of the interview itself, and the aftermath of the interview. So it was my job not to mess it up, really, because it was there as a gift, structurally.
And there's very different atmospheres in each of the 3 episodes, which I think is one of the really fascinating things about it. But by the time you were writing it, you must have known there was another film about this interview in the works, Scoop, based on the book by Sam McAllister, who used to work alongside us on Newsnight. Did that impact you in any way?
Not really. I live a pretty hermetic life. I knew that what we were doing was treating the abuse and treating the aftermath in a way that I suspected at the time a single wouldn't have the time to do. Cards on the table, I didn't watch Scoop, but I didn't watch Scoop for a very obvious reason, which is that I didn't want to get confused about what I was trying to deal with, because there are themes that interest me in this, which I wanted to explore, such as the, if you like, the triangulation between power, privilege and journalism, in the way that the establishment circles the wagons around its vulnerable stars and can be quite brutal. But there's something else which I found absolutely riveting, which is that tension that persists throughout between justice, an idea of justice, if you like, and entertainment. So the question that the drama raises, I hope, is around whether Newsnight were able to speak truth to power, or whether they got subsumed into that universe of entertainment and information porn that we have to live with 24/7, whether it becomes the Emily versus Andrew show rather than about the truths it was trying to interrogate. And I found that fascinating.
I mean, you are no stranger to royal stories. Diana and me, Queen Victoria, and Julian Gerald, of course, was one of the directors of The Crown. So you both have a pretty good royal pedigree. So now, do you have a clearer idea of what commoners find so riveting and compelling about royal stories, almost no matter what they are?
I think it's to do in part with the fact that they didn't ask for that right. And whether or not you're a Republican or a Royalist, you can have sympathy for the weird, frictionless life that they lead. In episode 1, Sir Edward makes this point to Amanda First, Andrew's private secretary. And when I was writing that scene, when I was trying to work out what Sir Edward says, Sir Edward Young, yeah, I began to realise what it must feel like to live in that hermetic life. It's weightless, and yeah, so I had a lot of empathy for the opposite. If you're spoken to as your royal highness, every day, day in, day out, it has to surround your lives, it has to do something for perception of something in the world.
What I thought was so interesting about what Michael Sheen said about inhabiting the character of Prince Andrew is that there's this kind of dichotomy. There's the man who actually went to the Falklands in very dangerous circumstances, saw dreadful things, and there's the man who was enthralled to Epstein. And his life was defined by these two things: Falklands and Epstein. And Michael Sheen said he kept that in his head.
I had few discussions with Michael about that dichotomy, and I think as a dramatist, my job is to raise questions, and my job is to try and take us the audience behind the into the life of Emily Reyes into the life of Prince Andrew. So when Michael was approaching the part, I'm thinking about what it must feel like to have lived that life, Falklands hero back in the Falklands Islands, and to have sat in front of a man as conflicted as Epstein, then you got to wonder where that puts you.
As everybody says, it's not just her version of events. We've had extensive conversations with the Newsnight team. But what contact or briefing was there from the palace, either clandestinely or not?
No. So obviously, I always knew that the brief would be, look, I have Emily as my executive producer, and she was, as you can imagine, generous and incredibly fast and quick to give me all the information I needed. And then I was the Andrew story, and I had to approach that in a very different way, but I've done part of the main material with people who've passed away, so I'm used to reading a great deal of material around that, and reading interviews and watching on YouTube, and trying to get a sense of how he frames his vision of the world, and how he feels his way through that improvised life he lived.
And of course, we have The Crown, which seems much more kind of benign in the way the whole question of the Crown. But if you look at political dramas, for example, if you look at Perfume and also Jeremy Thorne, they were very, very long after the event. The main protagonists were dead. In this one, the main protagonist is very much alive. I mean, was that even a consideration?
To the extent that he would be a witness to this, I imagine, in some form. Yes, but I think the drama raises legitimate questions which I have dramatist have a right to interrogate.
The drama is a kind of, it's fiction, it's reinvention, it's interpretation, it's a mixture of all these things.
Absolutely.
Did you feel any responsibility for accuracy or anything to get, as it were, right?
Accuracy and authenticity are really challenging when you're dealing with the private lives of private main characters, but you are guided by an emotional setting. And your gut instinct is telling you whether something feels authentic, feels true.
exactly what you did, I think, incredibly well with Eugenie and Beatrice. That felt very real to me. That you talked earlier about, was in a sense being victims of their birth. In those scenes with the two daughters, you felt very much that they were completely at sea.
One has to treat these characters delicately and with care, because they, above all, did not ask to be anybody's children, right? It's important that a drama like this does dig into and look at what that feels like. I hope in a way that remains sympathetic.
When Emily went up to receive her award for the original interview, one of the awards she got for the original interview, she was chided when she came off stage for supposedly not mentioning the victims. Now, whether that is true or not, what it served to do was to remind us that in the end, the victims are not really any fun at all.
No, one of the points that the drama attempts to shed some light on is precisely that question. So there's a scene in episode 3 where Emily sits down with her husband Mark and tries to pick away at why she's feeling so unsettled. And it's for this reason. She's navigating conflicts between the personal and the professional. She's contrasting online abuse at the hands of a stalker with the abuse of the victim. Not for one moment comparing the two, but she's trying to tease out from that debate with herself what it is that's the question and the constant. Their sense of entitlement, and as she puts it in the scene, the idea that they are the only person that they their needs are the only needs. After all the hoopla and after all the awards and the triumvirate, justice has not really been seen to be done. There was no court case. This was justice television style, which isn't the same thing at all. And of course it comes back then to the question of whether it ends up being distraction/entertainment rather than a proper pursuit of the truth that it tried to interrogate. Particularly for the abuse victims here in New York. Particularly for people who aren't, in the end, born into privilege, but have to live their lives and get up tomorrow and the next day and the next day with whatever story has been forced onto them.
Jeremy Brock, the writer of A Very Royal Scandal, which is streaming on Amazon from tomorrow. Prince Andrew has always strongly rejected claims of wrongdoing, and an out-of-court settlement acknowledged no liability. Now, on front row last Thursday, we announced the shortlist for this year's BBC National Short Story Award. And this week we're hearing from the finalists. Today is the turn of Dee Walker. Her story, Nice Dog, is set in the French Riviera and is told from the perspective of a witty, feisty chihuahua who slips his way about town and is the hero of the hour. I asked Dee Walker what her inspiration was.
Well, we were fortunate enough to have a family gathering in Nice for Christmas last year. Really an extraordinary thing. And we've never been to Nice before, and the Ville Ancienne, the old town where we stayed, was quite a scary place. We arrived late at night, walked up through shadowy alleys and really thought, oh, where are we coming to? And then we turned a corner and one of the alleys was packed with green plants quite unexpectedly. And we thought, wow, this is very different. So,
there was your setting for your story, but what led you to have a thought and narrate the story?
Kirsty, my stories just come. I don't book them or plan them. I simply had a little dog voice in my head saying, bonjour, my name is Duby. And it all steamrolled from there. I'm an editor, and the number of times I've lectured people on perhaps not opening their novels and short stories with dialogue, but it just couldn't be any other way. Stories tend to appear in my head fully formed, and I just have to write them down.
And you fretted about the opening line, didn't you? That bonjour. You fretted about that. Why was it so fretful?
Well, it was fretful because in the small print, and there's a lot of small print to these competitions, it said that the story had to be written in English. And I thought, well, the judges are probably just going to pick it up and then bin it within the first few words, because I begin with, bonjour, my name is Duby. So I said to Duby, do you want to go anywhere else in the story? And he said, no. So that was that.
So, we have a story about a dog who's really a sleuth. But tell me, all this idea about French cafe culture and dogs being there, witnessing everything, it seems very French. Elderly men with small dogs.
There's a remarkable number of tiny sort of toy dog varieties. But I warmed to them while I was there. I almost shocked myself because, like many people, I've perhaps grown up with collies and things here in the Highlands, big dogs, working dogs, and to see these little tiny chihuahuas everywhere underfoot. Initially I thought, oh no, but actually, once you start watching their behaviour, they're so clever and they're really cute.
This story is about, it's a bit of subterfuge finding things out, a bit of drug dealers and all the kind of lots of stuff in there. But at the heart of it, this little chihuahua, the message peace, that features on lots of the book, and obviously more of the pieces. But is that actually a French expression?
No, I'm afraid it's a V. Walker expression. I wanted to describe it, and I spent a lot of time trying to work out how to describe this action of basically dogs sort of lifting their leg on things and sniffing each other's tails. How could I make that acceptable in language? So I decided it would be chic and French, and you have a mannequin piece in Brussels, and I thought, well, you could have message piece in Nice, right?
So the dogs pass on the information to each other. Absolutely, the message piece. I mean, to me, it's kind of Mr. Ulo's holiday meets Golden One Dalmatians meets Greyfriars Bobby.
Indeed.
I mean, the thing is, a short story is very tough because you have to convey so much with brevity, but also create the atmosphere. Did your professional life help you do that?
Absolutely. I've been museums and heritage consultant all my working life. I've been a writer, but a hired happy way, someone who has been paid by clients to write non-fiction for them largely. And interpretive writing has taught me to distill the essence of a story quite rapidly, to actually draw it out, to pare it back to its bare bones. And that's a very useful skill both for editing, which I do as well, of course, and writing.
But it is a great caper because the dogs led by the Chihuahua foil an attempt by a drug criminal, and all the while bring different people in the community together to replace flowers and plants that have been missing. It's a feel-good story in the end.
Yes, I can't write clever stories. I want to write a story that lifts people's spirits, makes them smile, entertains them. If I have a bit of melodrama and adventure in it, then that's great. The issue about legalising drugs and things is touched on as well. But I can't do anything that's too carefully plotted. It just has to sort of trot out of my head and along these papers and into existence.
You want the story Nice Dog will be broadcast on Radio 4 tomorrow afternoon at 4:30. And you can also listen on BBC Sounds. The winner of the BBC National Short Story Award will be announced here on Sunday, the 1st of October. A cathedral is a wonderful place to listen to music of all kinds, not typically the setting for a performance exploring sexuality and seduction and gender norms. However, tomorrow night, the mezzo-soprano, Rowan Kellier, and pianist, Jonathan Ware, open the Glasgow Cathedral Festival. They'll be taking the people in the pews on an eclectic journey inspired by the art of 1920s Berlin, and from Nana Sleep by the legendary Kurt Weill to an experimental piece by the pioneering American composer Kathy Berbera, music which explores archetypes of modern female identity. Rowan and Jonathan performed in our studio earlier today, but first Rowan told me more about some of the individuals which inspired the production.
So we're in the Weimar Republic and we're with the New Women of Europe. So just to give a bit of background on the New Women, that was a feminist ideal and icon of changing gender norms that arose in the late 19th century and had far-reaching influence on the 20th. And then going on into this Weimar period, this is looking at real-life New Women that were depicted in paintings by Otto Dix and Jen Allen. And so you have figures like Anita Barber, who was this scandalous dancer, and she danced naked quite often. And she had a kind of thing. I think there's this kind of facade, which is interesting to talk about performance and kind of camp and sort of life as theatre and being as a performance. But underneath, there's the real emotion. She's lived a full life. She's been hurt. She's been in love, and she's sort of longing for that still, to almost to relive it. And that kind of comes out almost despite herself.
Well, I mean, Mara wrote it for Lottie Lengler, who was married to Carl for a period of time. She never sang it. Why did she never sing it?
I think she was always apparently incredibly kind of did herself down in terms of her own talents, her singing talent, and so maybe she felt that it wasn't something that she could do justice to. But I know that she felt that these songs were in the category of art song, and that they should be sung by classical voices, so possibly not.
Well, you're certainly going to do justice to it 100 years later. But before we do that, ladies and gentlemen, obviously, so give us a sense of the lyrics.
So, meine Herren, mit 17 Jahren kam ich auf den Liebesmarkt und ich habe viel erfahren. Böses gab es, doch, das war das Spiel. Aber manches habe ich doch geahnt. So she's saying there, when I was 17, I came onto the love market and I experienced a lot. There were horrible things, also nice things, and some of them I really regret. So there you have that kind of real experience.
Let's hear it. tomorrow night you're also performing extraordinary piece. Tell us about Strip City.
It's a graphic score, so we have these fantastic cartoon script images. There's kind of clocks, size, cat and dog fights, movie stars. You see the snippets of vodka, the snippets of the Beatles.
It was in 1966, and it's really all onomatopoeic. There's no musical score as such. It's all represented by these kind of lines and booms and dogs and all sorts of things. And for many of our listeners have never heard anything like it before. But give us a flavour of that, please.
Do you not think though that it's almost inevitable in healthcare? Something will, there will always be the old misdiagnosis. You're never going to have a perfect system where everything can be diagnosed right from the start, are you? Well, look, I can't comment on sort of what went wrong in your case, Sandra, and obviously if it's gone wrong, you're going to feel very sort of bad and possibly bitter about that. I completely get that. But Sandra, thank you very much indeed for your call. Let me tell you who's on cross-question. Josh Babarundi, Liberal Democrat MP for Eastbourne. He's just been appointed the party's new justice spokesperson. Baroness Vicky Morgan, Conservative peer. David Buick, the businessman who's business commentator, and Scarlett Maguire, political commentator. 0345 6060973 if you'd like to ask them a question in cross-question at 8 o'clock. It's 7:47.
This is LBC. The USA election explained on LBC.
With Betfair, play responsibly. I'm John Sokol, host of the global original Newsagents USA podcast. The two political parties that dominate this and every presidential election since 1852 are the Democrats and the Republicans. The Democrats, the Blue Party, are typically slightly left-leaning and in favour of more liberal and progressive policies. The Republicans, the Red Party, are usually smaller government and more traditional values. You'll also hear them named the GOP, the Grand Old Party. The two major issues dominating US politics aside from the economy are abortion and immigration, with both parties fundamentally disagreeing with each other.
The USA election, explained on LBC.
With Betfair, everyone knows the polls, experts know the odds. Play responsibly.
LBC.
There's never a good place to break down, especially not in the bistro neat, with a car full of kids on the way to the game and you're blocking the players' car park. But it's okay when you're with the AA. With more expert patrols in more places, we'll get you back on the road in no time. Join the UK's best breakdown service from £7 a month. Visit theaa.com. New customers only. 10% for customers pay £7 a month. T's and C's apply. Find best and patrol numbers at theaa.com/best.
It's wrong to lower prices on the things you buy least. It can't be lower prices on the things you buy most. The things our members need and use every day. It's just the right thing to do. Co-op. Owned by you, right by you. Drop in store or online.
Co-op membership required. Prices may vary. Selected stores and lines excludes. Independent cooperatives. £1 joining fees. See co-op.co.uk/terms.
The Philly cheesesteak is back at McDonald's. 2 beef patties, crispy and grilled onions, cheddar cheese, all topped with a melted cheddar cheese sauce. What could be better? How about playing the Monopoly game with a Philly cheesesteak too? Yes, please. Until 15th of October from 11 a.m. Participating UK restaurants. Subject to availability. 18 plus. App may be required. See mcdrules.co.uk.
All the big names are here. Ooh, who's that?
I think she was in the movie about that really big shark.
No, not her. The forest.
She's automating invoices on the go so she can spend more time on that flower wall.
QuickBooks can save you up to 8 hours a week so you can bring your vision to life. That's how you business differently. Intuit QuickBooks.
This is LBC with Ian Dale. Call 0345 6060 973.
10 to 8 on LBC. Now, 10 years ago today, voters in Scotland headed to the polling stations to cast their votes in the independence referendum. The Yes Scotland campaign had the backing of the SNP-led Scottish Government, while the Conservatives, Labour and Liberal Democrats all combined to form the No campaign, which had the name Better Together. Opinion polls have suggested that the No campaign had a significant lead, but the gap began to narrow just before the referendum took place. In the end, the No campaign did win, though, with about 55% of the vote. Now, before this evening show, I spoke to the former First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond, who had already been serving in that role for 7 years at the time of the referendum and would resign following the Yes vote's defeat. But despite the referendum not going the way he wanted it to, I put it to Alex Salmond that the campaign was still a landmark political event.
It was, and I suppose the way I look at it is this, but if you'd told me at the start of the campaign or back in 2012, when support for independence was 28% or so, you're going to get 45% of the referendum, I wouldn't have been overjoyed because obviously the objective was to win it, but I said, well, that's not a bad result. Of course, the trouble was in the last couple of weeks, where momentum seemed to be with the Yes side. Expectations were running high, so it came a bit of a disappointment when we didn't just get over the line. So yes, it was a great campaign in the sense of piling on support for independence, but the result wasn't quite what I wanted here.
No, obviously, but thinking back exactly 10 years ago, almost to the minute, as polling day progressed and you'd reached sort of 7:30 in the evening, was there part of you that thought, yes, we can do this, or did you already kind of know what the result was roughly going to be?
Well, I didn't, Ian, and I'll tell you why. At this time, 10 years ago exactly, I was in Newmarket with my constituents. And Newmarket was festooned with assault tax. I went to the community centre, and you couldn't move for assault tax, and enthusiastic people who'd either just been to the polls or were coming back from the polls. And of course, that tells you exactly why Yes was so optimistic. Because it was true that Yes voting areas were voting in high numbers and were voting very affirmatively. What we weren't seeing, of course, and that then applies to the great working class council schemes in Dundee and Glasgow. What we didn't see, of course, was that some other areas, better off areas in Scotland, were also voting very high. So while the great conurbations were voting at 75% for Yes, the Morningside was voting 95% for No. has been very enthusiastic, as they were. But you don't see the people who've gotten rather alarmed by the prospect of the yes victory and decided to turn out against.
How much thought had you given before the result to whether you should resign or not?
Quite a bit before. I mean, I sort of came to the conclusion that in a referendum, then you should take responsibility. If you're the First Minister or to be the Prime Minister, and things don't go the way you were campaigning, then I think somebody has to take the rap. So I sort of, and I indicated that to Nicola Sturgeon some months before. I mean, not thinking what we're going to lose, but nonetheless saying if we did, that's what I intend to do. I also came, I'd done 10 years, but a second 10-year stint as SNP leader, so it was hardly fly by night, That's 20 years in total. Also, there's something about the Scottish psyche here that you'll maybe understand, actually, that the Scots love when somebody's done down, and but after my resignation speech, I became the figure who'd been done down by the unionists, the establishment, the press, and all the rest of it, and that helped a big surge forward in SNP and yes support. So by the time I actually stood there in November 2014, when the yes support was back in the lead, the support for the SNP was at 55%, the membership was about 80,000, and I had a positive rating of plus 50%. So that's an example of the Scottish cycle. But one day, of course, Scotland will learn to win things as opposed to gallantly losing them.
I can remember broadcasting my show for a hotel in Edinburgh the day afterwards, and the news that you had resigned came through, and I was actually genuinely shocked because I wasn't expecting it. Looking back on that now, 10 years on, do you think that was the right decision? I mean, given everything that's happened since then?
No, it was not clearly the wrong decision. But, it's not given to you to have a crystal ball. I mean, Ian, you're one of the most receptive journalists in the country. If you'd come toddling along to my Fuston Steel office in 2012 and say, Alec, I've been looking into my crystal ball, which is always correct, and I can tell you that Boris Johnson is going to become the Prime Minister of the UK, and the UK is going to Brexit against the will of every single area of Scotland, then I would have said, Ian, I'll probably hold this referendum in a couple of years instead of going ahead now. So, you can't tell the future. Looking back, yes, I think, unfortunately, Scotland and the Scottish Parliament, Scottish Government missed chance after chance, not just to get towards independence, but also to advance Scotland's cause, particularly over Brexit. I mean, how on earth we ended up with a situation where Scotland is not in the single market, where the vast majority of the people and the Scottish politicians wanted it to be, but Northern Ireland, where the majority party didn't want it to be the single market, but ends up within it. I mean, that is a quite remarkable act of reverse statecraft.
And that's politics, I suppose. But let's look to the future, because of course since then you formed another nationalist party, ARPA. Hasn't been particularly electorally successful. Is it the only way that independence is going to come about for the whole independence movement to reunite and fight the campaign as one? Because at the moment it looks a little bit splintered. Independence, to my mind, looks further away than it certainly has ever since the referendum.
Well, I don't think that's true, Ian. I mean, I think the fundamental unlikely move to independence that half the population supports it. But, when the SNP won a landslide victory in 2011, the support for the SNP got to nearly 50%, but support for independence was below 30%. Now support for the SNP is at 30%, support for independence is nearly half the population. I think that's a more likely position to advance towards independence. You just have to arrange the political furniture in the right way. I mean, the test for ARPA, and indeed for other independence parties, will be in 18 months' time. But of course, the list vote in the Scottish Parliament elections gives you the opportunity to make a break. And that ARPA will stand or fall by that vote. But actually, I think Scottish independence will stand or fall by that vote, because that's the moment where the 50% will have the opportunity to get the Parliament who actually believes in independence and wants to do something about it, as opposed to a Parliament which has been wringing its hands over the last 10 years and doing virtually nothing.
But no prospect of ARPA disbanding and you going back to TSOP.
But there is, of course, a prospect of the Independence Party working together, which would be much to be admired. I mean, there are advantages to having more than one Independence Party. I mean, the SNP can understand it in a way for the record of the government over the last few years. So it's not a bad idea to have independence parties who are not don't have that kind of short-term legs. And it can't be blamed for their self-identification, body schemes, fishing bans, and all of the other sensible initiatives that the Hollywood administration have been up to over the last 2 years. And that's all advantages of having independent supporters who were not tarnished by that brush.
And that was Alex Salmond speaking to me earlier. As you know, he was Scotland's first minister when the independence referendum was held 10 years ago today, and he is now the leader of the Labour Party. Right, cross question next, as ever, at 8 o'clock on a Wednesday. It's our final cross question of the week. Joining me in the studio, Josh Babarenda, Liberal Democrat MP for Eastbourne. He was appointed as the party's new justice spokesperson earlier today. I think that's what could be called a meteoric rise. Baroness Nicky Morgan, she had a few rises of her own during her career. She's now a Conservative peer, former Cabinet Minister, former Education Secretary. David Buick, businessman, who's a markets commentator for, I don't know how to pronounce it, Aquis Exchange. I was going to say Aki. Scarlett Maguire, political commentator, former communications consultant to the Labour Party. Your questions, please. 0345 6060 973.
Radio on Global Player and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 8 o'clock, Lebanon says 14 people have been killed in the latest explosions involving communications devices. A day after pagers across the country blew up, Israel's being accused of targeting walkie-talkies carried by Hezbollah militants. Middle East correspondent for The Telegraph, Yotam Konfinos, told LBC this is likely to continue.
As much as the population in Israel would like to have a ceasefire with Hamas to get the hostages out, that's not happening right now. There's no indication that ceasefire will happen. And if there's no ceasefire in Gaza, Hezbollah will continue to attack Israel every single day.
It looks like the long-running battle between rail unions and the government is over. Drivers with the ASNEF union have accepted a new pay deal, while the RMT is recommending members of train firms and Network Rail also approve an offer. Ukraine says a drone attack has destroyed a warehouse full of weapons in Russia. One expert says the unverified footage looks like more than 200 tons worth of high explosives detonating. And America's central banks announced an interest rate cut to try to boost a flagging US economy. The Federal Reserve slashed its benchmark rate by 0.5 percentage point, but the Bank of England's unlikely to follow suit tomorrow. In the city, the FTSE 100 has closed down 56 points at 82.53. The pound buys $1.31 and €1.18. LBC weather staying dry tonight with some low cloud moving in from the east for most and a low of 6 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Daryl Jackson.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. Cross question with Ian Dale.
Hello, a very good evening. It's 2 minutes past 8 on LBC. Are you watching on Global Player? If not, why not? Because you can see my 4 beautifully attired guests. I didn't say beautiful guests, I said beautifully attired guests. With me in the studio, to my far left, Josh Babarenda, Liberal Democrat MP for Eastbourne. He's the party's justice spokesperson. Baroness Nicky Morgan, Conservative peer, former Cabinet Minister. David Buick, businessman, who's markets commentator for Aquis Exchange. And Scarlett Maguire, political commentator, former communications consultant to the Labour Party. Lots to talk about today, so we'd love you to phone in with your questions. 0345 6060 973. You can WhatsApp on that number. You can text 84850 or say, Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. Cross question with Ian Dale. This is LBC.
Right, let's go to our first caller. It's David in Uxbridge. David, very good evening. What's your question,
Good
please?
evening, Ian. It's good you're back. I'm glad you're
Thank you.
better. So the question for the panel this evening is, if a hostile state planted explosives in thousands of electronic devices in the UK, would they regard that as an act of terrorism, or do they believe this is now a legitimate form of warfare? And it speaks to the, how it gets covered, so it's just, and if the panel just try and speak directly to those points, please. So it's, is this state-sponsored terrorism, or is this now a legitimate form of warfare? Thank you.
Now, just a bit of background to this. 14 people have been killed and at least 450 people injured. I've read 3,000 injured. Anyway, across Lebanon today by exploding walkie-talkies after 12 people, including 2 children, were killed and almost 3,000 were injured yesterday by exploding pager devices. Now, the Israeli Defense Minister, Yoav Gallant, said this evening that his country is opening a new phase in the war. Well, that's certainly true. So, I'm not sure that Israel has actually accepted responsibility for this, but there's a clear hint in that phrase. Nikki Morgan.
I mean, David, you also, it's a good question, but the fact is that however you define it, whether it is an act of terrorism or the opening of a new front of a war, or whether you think it's legitimate or not, the fact is there is now yet another source of massive instability in the Middle East. Another front has opened up. Thousands of people have been injured and killed. And of course, this can be traced back it's a long-standing, but in many ways, particularly to the October the 7th dreadful, appalling, heinous crime that was committed last year against Israel. I don't know whether you're, in asking the question, whether you're thinking about whether in fact this is caught by, some sort of international conventions, but the fact is that renewed efforts to try to either stop this escalating, get parties back talking again, is incredibly important, but also extremely difficult while feelings are running quite so high. So I don't think I can answer your question directly, David. I'm not an expert on international warfare treaties, but the fact is this cannot be good news for the whole world at all.
But they're attacking Hezbollah terrorists. It's not, David draws the analogy of an attack on this country. Well, you can't, the analogy doesn't really work, does it? Because Hezbollah have been sending rockets into Israel, dozens and dozens of them every day, certainly over the last couple of months. I'm not sure that they were necessarily at the beginning of this. So Israel surely has got a right to say, okay, well, if you as an organisation are sending rockets into our country, we are going to try and disable the people who are doing that. And these are all Hezbollah terrorists, as I understand it, who've got these pagers or walkie-talkies or whatever. So why would that be considered anything wrong?
Well, I'm not saying it's considered wrong. The question David was asking was how do you treat this? And the fact is, I think for most of us, it doesn't matter which category it falls into. The fact is, it's an escalation of a conflict, exactly as you say, Ian, where rockets have been fired into Israel. There's a long-standing conflict. As I say, the major piece of the escalation was the appalling attacks last October. We're coming up to the anniversary. There are still some hostages. We don't know where, Israeli hostages, we don't know the whereabouts. And Israel absolutely has a right to defend itself. It's the only proper democracy in that part of the world. But the fact is, I think if you talk, Josh has still endorsed it, more recent than me, but people know that the world is a very uncertain, quite a dark place. There are a number of very serious conflicts. And I go back to what I said. None of this is good. Whatever you define it, it's not good news.
Josh Beveridge for the Liberal Democrats.
Well, to David's question, one can label this in whatever way they like, but at the end of the day, this is an atrocity. So many people have either lost their lives or been injured, and it's just clearly not a sustainable situation. You used the term earlier, right, about whether a country has a right or not to do something. I think something we can all agree on is that civilians have a right to live.
These are terrorists, these are not civilians.
No, but what I'm saying is that civilians have a right to live in peace across the region, and that is being compromised by the escalation in activity